Story: my ex-wife cheated on me, but now my daughters are siding with her today. The truth shattered my family the night I found out about Claire's betrayal was one of those moments you never forget, no matter how many years pass. I can still see the flicker of the kitchen light, the faint hum of the refrigerator, and the glow of her phone screen as she stood by the counter, smiling at something or someone that wasn't me. I had just gotten back from a late meeting at the construction firm. My hands were calloused, covered in dust from the blueprints I'd been marking, my head heavy from hours of negotiating with clients. All I wanted was a shower, a cold beer, and the warmth of my wife beside me. But instead, what I saw turned my blood cold. She didn't hear me walk in. I watched as she typed quickly, her lips curling into a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. "Can't wait to see you again," she whispered, almost like a prayer. My chest tightened. "Who are you talking to?" I asked, my voice low, trembling with something between fear and rage. Claire jumped, her phone slipping out of her hands and clattering onto the counter. Her eyes widened, her face pale as if she had seen a ghost. "Mark, you scared me," she stammered, clutching the phone like it was a lifeline. "Answer the question," I demanded. My hands were shaking, and I could feel the weight of every year we'd spent together, 15 years of marriage, laughter, and 2 daughters who meant everything to me slipping like sand through my fingers. "It's just a friend," she said quickly, too quickly. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "A friend you're calling baby?" Her silence was my confirmation. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the steady ticking of the clock above the dining table. I wanted her to deny it, to tell me I was wrong, to fall into my arms and say it was all a misunderstanding. But instead, she looked down. Unable to meet my eyes, I grabbed her phone before she could lock it, and there it was, a string of messages. Explicit, intimate, unmistakable. Every word was a knife in my chest. "Claire," I whispered, my voice breaking how on her lips trembled. A few months. During our anniversary, during the weekends we spent taking our daughters to soccer practice and school events. During the nights I came home tired, but grateful for the life we had. The sound of footsteps interrupted us. "Dad." It was Emily, our eldest, standing at the bottom of the stairs in her pajamas. She was only 16, but the look in her eyes told me she knew something was wrong. Behind her, Sarah, our younger daughter at 13, peeked nervously. I forced myself to stand tall, wiping at the tears threatening to fall. "Go back to bed, girls, we'll talk in the morning." But the morning didn't bring peace. It brought war. The next day, Claire admitted it all. She wanted out. She said she wasn't happy, that she had found something real with the other man, a colleague from her office. My daughters sat at the kitchen table, their eyes darting between us like spectators at a match they never asked to watch. "I still love you," I told her, desperation cracking my voice. "We can fix this, Claire, for the girls." Her eyes were stone. "It's over, Mark." Emily burst into tears, while Sarah sat frozen, biting her lip. My world collapsed as I watched my family splinter right before me. By the end of the week, I was packing my bags. Claire wanted the house, and the court later agreed it was best for the children's stability. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment across town, my heart hollow, my arms aching from the absence of my daughters. At first, they visited every weekend. We went to the park, ordered pizza, played board games like nothing had changed. But slowly, I saw it, the shift. The way they repeated their mother's words, the way Emily sighed when I asked about school, or the way Sarah scrolled on her phone instead of talking to me. It was like I was losing them one small piece at a time, and Claire knew exactly what she was doing. The slow drift away at first. I told myself things would get better with time. Divorce was messy, sure, but my girls loved me. Nothing could change that door, so I believed. Every Friday evening, I'd drive across town to pick them up. Emily would slide into the front seat, headphones in, scrolling through her phone without a word. Sarah, sweet Sarah, would sit in the back, giving me a half-hearted smile that barely reached her eyes. I'd try to start conversations. "How was school?" "Fine." "Any soccer games coming up?" "Ask Mom." Those 2 words, "ask Mom," cut deeper than any blade. When they were younger, I was the hero. I taught them how to ride bikes, cheered at every school recital, stayed up late building dollhouses with them when Claire was too tired. But now, it was as if none of that mattered. Now, I was just Dad, the guy they saw on weekends. One Friday, Emily finally snapped. "Why do we even have to come here?" she blurted out, crossing her arms. I nearly swerved the car. "What do you mean?" She rolled her eyes. "It's boring here. You don't even let us do anything fun. At Mom's, we can stay up late, order food, watch movies." "Emily," I interrupted, trying to steady my voice. "I'm not trying to be the fun parent. I'm trying to be your father. There's a difference." Her face hardened, and she looked away. Sarah didn't say anything, but the silence was worse than words. That night, after they went to bed, I sat on the couch, staring at the photos on my wall, pictures of birthdays, vacations, family Christmases. All smiles, all lies. Now, I couldn't help but wonder if those moments even meant anything to them anymore. Weeks turned into months. Claire didn't waste time parading her new boyfriend, a slick-looking man named Jason, into their lives. He drove a shiny Tesla, wore expensive suits, and always seemed to have some grand story about his business ventures. The first time I met him, it was at Sarah's soccer game. I arrived early, carrying a folding chair and a cooler of water bottles. For the girls, when I saw Jason standing beside Claire, his arm casually draped around her waist, I felt like the ground had given way beneath me. "Mark," Claire said smoothly, her eyes daring me to cause a scene. "This is Jason." Jason extended his hand with a smug grin. "Heard a lot about you, man." I didn't take his hand. Instead, I turned to my daughters. "Ready for the game?" Emily shifted uncomfortably. "Mom already got us snacks." The match went on, but I couldn't focus. Every cheer from Jason, every clap on the girls' backs, it all felt like he was replacing me piece by piece. And worst of all, my daughters didn't push him away. They welcomed him. One night, Sarah let something slip. "Mom says you were never around," she muttered while brushing her teeth in my apartment. The words hit me like a freight train. "What? That's not true." She shrugged, her voice small. "She said you worked too much and didn't care about her. That's why she, I gripped the sink to steady myself. My reflection in the mirror was a man I barely recognized, tired, eyes unshaven face, a stranger who had lost everything. "Sarah," I said softly, kneeling so I could look her in the eyes, "I worked hard because I wanted to give you and Emily a good life. I never stopped caring. Not for a second. Whatever your mom told you, it's not the whole truth." She hesitated, her lip trembling, but then she whispered, "I believe you, Dad." It was a small victory, but it didn't last. The following weekend, Emily refused to come over at all. Claire called me to inform me to announce that Emily wanted to stay home. "She's old enough to make her own choices," Claire said coolly. "You can't force her." I felt my blood boil. "You're poisoning them against me." She laughed, a cruel sound. Or maybe they just see the truth. That night, I sat in my empty apartment. Sarah curled up in bed while Emily stayed with her mother. My chest ached with a pain I couldn't describe. It wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was abandonment. By my own children, and deep down, I feared it was only the beginning. A stranger in my own home. The first Christmas after the divorce was when I realized just how deep the cracks had spread. I decorated the apartment as best I could, string lights on the windows, a small artificial tree in the corner, stockings with Emily's and Sarah's names stitched across the top. I wanted it to feel like home, even if it wasn't the same house they grew up in. When the girls arrived, Sarah's eyes lit up at the tree. She ran over, tugging on an ornament shaped like a snowflake. "Did you buy all this for us, Dad?" I smiled, my heart warming. "Of course. What's Christmas without a little magic?" But Emily, she stood by the door, arms crossed, her face hard. "This feels fake." My smile faltered. "What do you mean?" She shrugged, pulling out her phone. "It's not the same. At Mom's, we have the real tree. Jason helped us decorate it last week. We even have matching pajamas this year." Jason. Again, always Jason. I forced myself to stay calm. "Well, this is our Christmas. We can make it special in our own way." But she didn't even look at me. That night, after Sarah went to bed, Emily finally spoke her mind. "Why can't you just move on like Mom did?" she asked coldly, scrolling through her messages. I froze. "What do you mean?" "She's happy now," Emily continued. "She has Jason. She doesn't cry all the time anymore. And you just sit here alone, like you're waiting for something that's never coming back." The words sliced through me. She didn't see the nights I stayed up crying into my pillow, or the mornings I dragged myself to work just to keep food on the table. She didn't see the way my hands shook when I signed the divorce papers, or how I'd whispered "I'm sorry" to their baby photos hanging on my wall. All she saw was me broken, while her mother seemed whole. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her everything. That her mother had betrayed me, that she had lied, that she had replaced me before the ink was even dry. But how do you say that to your child without breaking them? Instead, I swallowed the truth. "Emily, I just want what's best for you, and Sarah, that's all I've ever wanted." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a split second I thought I saw the little girl who used to run into my arms after school. But then the moment passed, and she rolled her eyes. "You're just bitter," she muttered, walking away. The following weeks were worse. Emily started refusing my calls altogether. Sarah still came, but even she seemed distant, always distracted, always checking her phone. One Sunday evening, as I drove them back to Claire's, I overheard something that nearly broke me. In the back seat, Emily whispered to Sarah, "Don't you think Mom deserves better than Dad? I mean, look at him, he's pathetic." Sarah didn't answer. She just stared out the window, her reflection flickering in the glass. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My throat tightened, but I didn't say a word. Because, what could I say? That I wasn't pathetic. That I was doing everything in my power just to stay afloat. When we pulled up to Claire's house, Jason was there. standing on the porch with his arm around her waist like he owned everything I'd built. My daughters ran to him, smiling in a way they hadn't smiled at me in months. And that's when I realized the truth. I wasn't just losing them, I had already lost them. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the empty stockings. On the wall, tears burned my eyes. But beneath the pain, a new feeling began to stir. Rage. Not at my daughters. I could never hate them, but at Claire, at Jason, at the lies that had twisted my children's love into something cold and sharp. Claire thought she could erase me from their lives. She was wrong. I wasn't going to give up. I was their father, and I would fight until my last breath to remind them of that. Fighting shadows. The new year rolled in, but instead of hope, it brought distance. Sarah still came to visit on weekends, but Emily stopped altogether. She claimed she had too much homework or plans with friends. I knew better. I knew Claire was whispering in her ear, telling her lies about me, about our marriage, about everything I had ever done as a father. I hired a lawyer to discuss custody. Mark, she said carefully, flipping through my file, shared custody is the standard. But if your daughter refuses to come, the court won't force her. Judges listen to teenagers, especially at 16. They'll call it her choice, as if a child poisoned by half-truths and manipulation could truly choose. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the glow of my phone screen, scrolling through photos of happier times. Emily on my shoulders at the county fair. Sarah asleep in my arms after a long day at the beach. My girls, my heart, how could they just forget? One Saturday, I took Sarah to the park. She used to love it, there the swings, the ice cream truck, the way the ducks waddled by the pond. But she wasn't the same girl anymore. She sat on the bench beside me, earbuds in, scrolling TikTok. Want to go feed the ducks? I asked, holding up a small bag of bread. She barely looked up. Maybe later. I tried again. Remember when you used to make up names for all of them? There was Quackers and Sir Waddlesworth, Dad. She cut me off, her voice sharp. I'm not a little kid anymore. Her words stung more than they should have. I sighed, staring out at the pond. I know, I miss those days. For the first time in weeks, she glanced at me, her expression softening. I do too sometimes. That small crack of honesty was enough to keep me going. But as I drove her back to Claire's, I noticed Jason's Tesla parked in the driveway. Again, Sarah's whole demeanor changed. She perked up, smiling, rushing inside before I could even say goodbye. Through the window, I saw her hug him, not me. Days later, the blow came harder. I was sitting at work when my phone buzzed with a message from Emily. For a split second, my heart leapt. She hadn't texted me in weeks, but when I opened it, my chest hollowed. Stop trying so hard, Dad. You're making everything worse. Mom says you need to move on, and she's right. My hands shook as I reread the words. My coworkers' voices faded, the office around me blurring. My daughter, my baby girl, was telling me to let go. I stepped outside, the cold January wind biting my face. Tears blurred my vision, but anger burned beneath them. Claire had turned my daughter into a weapon, and she was using her to break me piece by piece. That night, I called Claire. Why are you filling their heads with lies? I demanded. Her laugh was sharp, cruel. Oh, Mark, I don't need to lie. They see it for themselves. You're miserable. You're clinging to the past. You're making this harder on them than it needs to be. You cheated, I spat, my voice trembling with rage. You destroyed this family, and now you're trying to make me the villain. Her tone turned icy. Maybe if you'd been a better husband, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. My fist clenched so tight my knuckles cracked. Don't you dare put this on me. Good night, Mark, she said flatly, hanging up. The silence after that call was suffocating. I sat on the couch, staring at the empty space where my daughters used to laugh, where their backpacks used to sit by the door, where their voices once filled the air. For the first time in my life, I felt like a ghost in my own story. But even ghosts can haunt. If Claire thought I was going to disappear quietly, she was wrong. I wasn't done fighting, not for myself, but for my daughters. The breaking point, by February, the cracks weren't cracks anymore, they were canyons. Emily refused to come over entirely. She didn't answer my calls, didn't respond to my texts. The only glimpses I had of her were from the photos Claire posted online, Emily grinning at a ski resort, Emily posing in matching pajamas with Jason and Sarah, Emily blowing out candles at a birthday dinner I wasn't invited to. Each photo felt like a knife to the chest. Sarah still visited, but even she was slipping through my fingers. She laughed less. She avoided eye contact, and when she did speak, it was often to compare me to Jason. Jason bought Emily a new phone. She said once while scrolling at my kitchen table, "That's nice." I forced out, "He takes us to nicer restaurants too. You should try it sometime." I wanted to scream, I'm not competing with him. But in her eyes, I was losing a competition I never agreed to join. The breaking point came one Saturday evening. Sarah and I had ordered pizza, her favorite, and I tried to make the night special. We put on a movie, one we used to watch every year. Halfway through, her phone buzzed. It was Emily. Sarah answered, her voice excited in a way it never was with me anymore. I listened as Emily said Jason was taking them both to a concert that night, something expensive. Flashy. Sarah's eyes lit up. Can you take me back to Mom's now, please? I froze. But, we're spending the weekend together. She shifted uncomfortably. Yeah, but this is different. It's a concert. All my friends are going to. Sarah, my voice cracked. I planned this night for us. Doesn't that mean anything? Her face softened, but only for a moment. Then she shook her head. I don't want to miss out. Dad, please. The word please cut deeper than anger. She wasn't defying me, she was begging me, so I drove her back. When we pulled into Claire's driveway, Jason was there, leaning against his car with that smug grin plastered across his face. Sarah jumped out of the car before I could even say goodbye. She hugged him, laughing, while Claire stood at the door, smirking at me like she had one. And maybe she had. I drove back to my apartment with the untouched pizza sitting on the passenger seat. The movie still paused on the TV, the silence around me heavier than ever. For the first time, I wondered if my daughters would be happier without me. The thought terrified me. I sat in the dark that night, staring at the ceiling, tears streaming down my face. I whispered to myself, "You're their father. You can't give up." But the voice in my head kept asking, "Then why don't they see it?" At some point, I fell asleep on the couch, the empty pizza box still on the table. I dreamed of the past first steps, Sarah's laughter echoing in the yard. Claire's smile back when it was real. When I woke up, the sunlight felt cruel, but something inside me had shifted. I couldn't keep chasing their love. Like a man begging for scraps. If they were ever going to see me for who I truly was, it wouldn't be because I tried harder than Jason or begged louder than Claire. It would be because I stood tall. Because I became someone they could look at one day and say, "That's my father." Even if it took years, even if it broke me first. That morning, I made a decision. No more desperate texts. No more begging. No more letting Claire's poison dictate who I was. I was going to fight for my daughters, yes, but I was also going to fight for myself. Because if I couldn't respect the man in the mirror, how could I expect my daughters to respect me? Rebuilding myself. The weeks after Sarah left me for that concert were some of the darkest of my life. But strangely, they were also the weeks when I began to change. I started small. I cleaned my apartment, not just a quick sweep, but a deep clean. I threw out the clutter, repainted the walls, bought new furniture. I wanted my daughters to walk in and feel like this was home, not a stopover. Then I worked on myself. I signed up for the gym, something I hadn't done in years. The first week was brutal. I could barely lift the weights. My body ached, and I wanted to quit every time I looked in the mirror. But slowly, the pain became fuel. The sweat washed away the bitterness. Each mile on the treadmill felt like I was running from the man I used to be. I even started cooking again. Real meals, not just pizza or takeout. When Sarah came next time, I wanted her to smell the warmth of home as soon as she walked in. And perhaps most importantly, I went back to therapy. I'd tried once during the divorce but quit after a few sessions. Now, I committed. I sat in that quiet office week after week, telling the therapist about my anger, my heartbreak, my daughter's rejection. She listened, sometimes asking questions that dug deeper than I wanted to go, but it helped. Slowly, I felt like I was stitching myself back together. Then came the real test. One Saturday afternoon, Sarah came over. I had spent the morning cooking her favorite meal, homemade lasagna, the way she used to love it when she was younger. The apartment smelled of garlic and melted cheese. The table set neatly with candles. She walked in, her eyes widening a little. "Whoa, did you do all this?" I smiled. "Of course, for you." For the first time in months, she sat down without pulling out her phone. She actually ate. She even complimented me. "This is really good, Dad." It wasn't much, but it was a start. After dinner, we sat on the couch watching a comedy show. She laughed, a real, genuine laugh, and, for a moment, it felt like old times. My chest ached with hope, but then her phone buzzed. Emily again. Sarah's face darkened. She glanced at me, hesitated, then finally answered. I listened as Emily's voice crackled through the speaker. "You're still with Dad. My mom says he's just trying to buy your love. Don't fall for it." Sarah's eyes flicked toward me, guilt swimming in them. "Emily, stop. He's trying. Trying doesn't change anything." Emily snapped. "Jason's here. He's way better at this than Dad ever was." I wanted to rip the phone out of her hand, scream at Emily, tell her the truth about her mother and Jason, but I didn't. Instead, I took a deep breath, forcing my voice steady. "Sarah," I said gently, "you don't need to hide that from me. I know what your sister thinks." She bit her lip. "It's not fair, Dad. Mom talks bad about you all the time. And I don't know what to believe anymore." I reached out, taking her hand. "Believe what you feel when you're here with me. That's the truth." Her eyes welled with tears, and for the first time in a long time, she leaned against me, resting her head on my shoulder. That night, after she went to bed, I sat on the couch in silence. For the first time since the divorce, I didn't feel like I was losing everything. I felt like maybe Just maybe, I was starting to win something back. Not by fighting Claire. Not by competing with Jason. But by being the man my daughters needed me to be, even if Emily couldn't see it yet. Cracks in the mask. The days that followed with Sarah gave me something I hadn't felt in years. Hope, but reality always had a way of intruding. One Wednesday evening, I got a call from Sarah. Her voice was shaky. Dad, can you come pick me up? I froze. Where are you? Mom's house. Please, don't tell her. I grabbed my keys and rushed over. When I pulled up, Sarah was sitting on the curb, her backpack at her feet, arms wrapped around her knees. The porch light from Claire's house glowed behind her, but she wasn't inside. She looked small, fragile. Parked and got out, my chest tightening. Sarah, what happened? Her voice cracked. Mom and Jason had another fight. They were screaming at each other. Jason, he threw a glass at the wall. My fists clenched. Jason, the man my daughters had defended. The man Claire swore was better than me. I crouched down, cupping Sarah's face. Are you okay? She nodded, but her eyes were red. I didn't know where else to go. Emily stayed inside with Mom, but I couldn't. I hugged her tight. For the first time, she didn't resist. She clung to me, trembling. When we got back to my apartment, she barely touched dinner. Instead, she sat at the kitchen counter, staring at her phone. She's texting me, Sarah whispered, holding it out. It was Emily. Stop making Mom feel bad. Stop running to Dad. He's not the victim. Sarah, he ruined everything. Sarah's hands shook. Why is she like this? Why can't she see? I took a slow breath, forcing down my anger, because Emily only hears one side of the story. She's with your mom more. She doesn't see what you see. Sarah looked up, tears brimming. But Dad, what if she never does? Her words cut deeper than any knife. That night, after Sarah fell asleep in the guest room, I sat awake staring at the ceiling. For months, I had told myself things would change, that if I just kept trying, kept showing love, the truth would eventually win out. But Emily was slipping further away, and Claire was poisoning her against me. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. It was a Sunday. I was supposed to meet both girls for lunch. I drove to Claire's house to pick them up, heart pounding with anticipation. Sarah came out first, her smile small but real. But Emily didn't move from the doorway. She stood there, arms crossed, glaring at me. Claire's shadow loomed just behind her. I'm not going, Emily spat. I tried to keep calm. It's just lunch. I haven't seen you in weeks. She shook her head. I don't care. I don't want to be around you. You're pathetic, Dad. Mom said you only care now because you're alone. Where were you before? Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Sarah's face crumpled. Emily, stop. But Emily cut her off. No, I'm done. You can go play house with him if you want, but I'm not. She turned and stormed back inside. Claire's eyes met mine for a brief second, cold and smug, before she shut the door. Stood there on the porch, Sarah by my side, feeling like the ground had given way beneath me. My daughter, my little girl, who used to run into my arms, had just looked me in the eyes and called me pathetic, and I realized Claire had won this round, but the war wasn't over. Not yet. When the curtain fell 3 days after the Sunday blow-up, I didn't hear from Emily. Her silence was louder than any insult. Sarah stayed with me, trying to keep her mind on schoolwork, but I caught her staring out the window too often. Worry etched across her face. Dad, she whispered one night at dinner, what if Emily never forgives you? I swallowed hard. Then I'll keep trying until she does. She's my daughter, Sarah. I'll never stop fighting for her. Sarah's lips trembled, and she gave me the smallest nod. The next Friday, everything changed. I was at work when my phone buzzed. It was Sarah, panicked. Dad, you need to come now. It's Mom's house. My blood went cold. When I got there, police cars lined the street. Neighbors stood outside whispering, pointing. My chest tightened as I pushed through. Inside. The house was chaos. A lamp broken, shards of glass across the floor, chairs tipped over. Claire sat on the couch, sobbing into her hands, while Jason shouted at an officer, his face red with rage. And Emily, my Emily, sat in the corner, hugging her knees, eyes wide with terror. I rushed to her. Emily. She looked up, startled, then burst into tears. Dad, she collapsed into my arms, shaking violently. Later, I learned the truth. Jason had come home drunk. He and Claire started fighting loud, vicious. He accused her of cheating. She accused him back. And soon, objects started flying. At one point, Jason shoved Claire hard enough that she hit the table. That's when Sarah called me. That's when the neighbors called the police. Emily had seen all of it. That night, both girls stayed with me. Sarah slipped easily into the guest room. But Emily wouldn't let go of me. She sat curled against me on the couch, silent except for the occasional shudder. At 2 a.m., she finally whispered, Dad, yes, baby. Her voice broke. I'm sorry for everything, I said. I didn't know. I didn't want to believe you. I kissed her hair, my throat tight. It's okay, Em. None of that matters right now. You're safe. That's all I care about. She clung tighter. I don't want to go back there. And just like that, the walls Claire had built between me and my daughter began to crumble. But peace wouldn't come easy. The next morning, Claire showed up at my apartment, eyes swollen from crying, voice hoarse. You can't just take them, she snapped. They're my daughters too. I stood firm. Not when Jason's around, not until a judge decides. I'm filing for custody. Her face twisted with rage. You think you'll win? After everything, they'll see you're no better than him. But behind her fury, I saw something else. Fear. Because for the first time since our divorce, Claire was losing control. The custody war. Filing for custody wasn't just paperwork. It was war. The courthouse smelled of old paper and tension. I sat at one table with my lawyer, Sarah's hand tightly gripping mine. Across the room sat Claire, her lawyer, and Emily, who couldn't meet my eyes. She looked pale, exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. Jason wasn't allowed inside. A restraining order had already been placed against him after the incident. But the shadow of his presence still lingered. Everyone in that courtroom knew. He was the reason we were here. The judge called the case. Claire's lawyer stood first. Your Honor, my client has been the primary caregiver of both children since the divorce. Despite some marital difficulties with her new husband, she has provided a stable home environment. Mr. Miller, he gestured at me, is trying to use one unfortunate incident to rip the girls away from their mother. I clenched my jaw. Unfortunate incident. Emily had nightmares every night since that fight. My lawyer rose. Your Honor, this was not one incident. Mr. Miller has repeatedly raised concerns about Jason's drinking, his volatility, and the toxic environment created. In that home, last week, police were called after a violent altercation endangered both minors. We have witnesses. We have reports. The judge nodded slowly, taking notes. My pulse thundered. Then came the hardest part. The judge looked at my daughters. Sarah, Emily, you are old enough to express your wishes. Do you feel safe in your mother's home? Sarah spoke first. Her voice didn't shake. No, Your Honor, I want to live with my dad. He's always been there for us. I don't feel safe with Jason. I squeezed her hand, pride swelling. Then, the judge turned to Emily. She froze. Her eyes darted to Claire, then to me. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. Finally, with tears running down her cheeks, she whispered, I want to stay with Mom. The room spun. I felt Sarah's grip tighten, felt my heart shatter all over again. Outside, after court recessed, I found Emily sitting alone on the courthouse steps. I said softly. She wouldn't look at me. Don't try to change my mind. Dad, I sat beside her. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm here because I love you. Her lip trembled. Mom said if I pick you, she'll hate me forever. I can't make her hate me. I swallowed the rage rising inside me. Claire, poisoning her own daughter's heart just to win. I placed a hand gently on Emily's shoulder. Listen to me. Whatever you decide, I will never hate you. Never. You're my daughter, Em. Nothing can change that. For the first time, she looked at me. Her eyes searched mine, fragile and conflicted. And for the briefest moment, I saw hope flicker there. But the war was far from over. The judge scheduled another hearing. This time with testimonies from neighbors, teachers, and even a child psychologist. The next weeks became a blur of interviews, paperwork, and sleepless nights. Sarah stayed strong by my side. Emily drifted back and forth like a ghost, sometimes distant, sometimes clinging to me when she thought no one was watching. And Claire. She was unraveling, desperate, cornered because for the first time, the truth was catching up to her. The verdict. The courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that presses against your chest and makes it hard to breathe. Claire sat at her table, her hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot. She was unraveling, and for once, she knew she was losing control. Her lawyer shuffled papers nervously. My daughters sat between us, Sarah clutching Emily's hand. Emily avoided my eyes, but I could see the storm inside her. The judge cleared his throat. This court has considered all testimonies, police reports, and the recommendations of the child psychologist. What is abundantly clear is that the presence of Jason Edwards poses a threat to the emotional and physical well-being of these minors. While Mrs. Miller, his eyes narrowed at Claire, continues to minimize his behavior, the court cannot ignore the danger. My pulse pounded. The court hereby grants primary custody to Mr. Miller. Mrs. Miller will be allowed supervised visitation until further review. The gavel struck. I couldn't breathe. Relief and grief crashed into me. All at once, Sarah threw her arms around me, sobbing. Emily sat frozen, staring at her mother as Claire's face crumbled. No, Claire shouted, rising to her feet. You can't do this. They're my daughters. The bailiff stepped forward, warning her to sit. She fought, tears streaming down her cheeks. Emily, baby, tell them you want to stay with me, please. Emily's shoulders shook. She looked between us, her broken mother and me, her terrified father. Then she whispered, voice breaking, Mom, you lied to me. You said, if I picked Dad, he'd leave me too. But he never left. Not once. Claire's face twisted with pain. But Emily stood, walked shakily across the room, and collapsed into my arms. I just want to feel safe, Dad. She sobbed against my chest. I held both my daughters, one on each side, and for the first time in years, I felt whole. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Emily struggled with guilt, torn between loyalty to her mother and the love she could no longer deny from me. Sarah stayed strong, helping her sister adjust. I made sure they both went to therapy. Made sure they knew my house wasn't just walls and windows, it was home, a safe place. As for Claire, she fought at first. She sent angry messages, left voicemails full of venom, but over time, the fury gave way to silence. Jason disappeared from her life soon after. The last I heard, she'd left town. One night, months later, I tucked my daughters into bed. Sarah kissed my cheek and whispered, "Thanks for fighting for us, Dad." Emily lingered. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I'm sorry it took me so long." I brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You don't ever have to apologize for loving your mom, Em. You just had to learn the truth, yourself. And, now you know, I'll never stop fighting for you." She smiled softly, finally, at peace. And as I turned off the lights, I realized something. Claire may have betrayed me. My daughters may have once sided with her, but in the end, love, patience, and truth had won. I hadn't just gotten custody. I had gotten my family back.